Hey everyone, I've been getting a lot of questions about which mat is right for you. So I have two mats with me, which I use for two different things. I use a thin mat, which is over here. I use this mat for yoga, and I use this thick mat for HIIT classes or for camping. So this mat is obviously a lot thicker. If you see, my finger is almost as thick as the mat is. And this mat is really good for your joints, it's good for your bones. If you're doing a crunch or you're on the ground, this mat is pretty good for you. Now, if you're doing something like a yoga, all yogis you'll see will be using a thin mat like this. So this mat feels closer to the earth, you feel more centered, more grounded. It's something that you're used to being on. It just gives you that extra little grip than it would if you're straight on wood. So if you're on wood or you're on cement, it's a little bit rough. So this is just a thin mat that gives you just a little bit extra padding or extra grip. So if you're, instead of sliding around, you're being pretty well held up. Now for a thick mat, I would not suggest doing too much balance on it. When you're on a thick mat, it can actually throw off your balance. So if you ever notice, if you're on the rug opposed to being on hardwood, you'll notice that you'll have less balance on the rug than you would on the hard floor. So that's similar to this scenario here. If you are on a thick mat opposed to a thin mat, you'll notice that your balance will be thrown off a bit. Now, I'm not saying that this is a bad mat for yoga. This could be used for yoga. It really depends on your joints and once you get to the floor. So yes, you might have that struggle in the beginning when you're going into like a warrior pose or warrior two, but once you're on the ground, it might really help out when you're in a pose such as like the boat pose where you're right on your tailbone. This might be the mat for you for that scenario. So there are two options. I mean, there are a lot of different in between, but in real life, there's basically just two. So there's a thin mat and a thick mat. This is an expensive mat. This is about $100. This is a Manduka. This is a generic mat. I have no idea what the brand is. It's very thin. It was like $12. I have another thin mat from TJ Maxx, $12. So you don't have to go out and spend a ton of money on a mat. You can get a thin mat or a thick mat for just as cheap as you can for an expensive one. The quality will just last you a little bit longer if you go with the more expensive usually. I hope this helped a little bit and maybe it'll make your decision a bit easier. Good luck and let me know if you have any questions.